The Texas justice system is messy, so let's break it down. You're listening to So You Got Arrested, the podcast that tells you what really happens after an arrest. Hosted by BRIC criminal defense attorneys, we talk to the people who've lived it, worked in it, and been shaped by it. Whether you're facing charges or just want to understand your rights, your options, and the smart moves that could change everything, we've got your back.
Scott, so once again, we're very fortunate and blessed to have one of our candidates for Bexar County DA coming in to speak with us on the podcast today. We have Mr. Oscar Salinas.
Hey, how's it going?
He's looking sharp today. I love that suit.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, he's the only one wearing a tie, so he's the most professional out of the three of us.
This is as casual as I've ever been on the podcast. So I'm getting ready for the holidays, the cold season. So, yeah.
So we're excited to have you on. If you would, just kind of tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
So originally I'm from Brownsville, Texas.
Oh, the Valley.
Yeah, I'm
awesome.
down from the Valley. I still actually have a 956 phone number.
Okay.
Us Valley people keep our 956 phone
keeping
numbers.
it real, the 956.
Moved up to Corpus Christi, where I did my undergrad at A&M Corpus Christi.
The Islanders.
The Islanders, yes. Law school at the University of Texas School of Law. Growing up, I was a competitive Golden Gloves boxer.
Really? That's
awesome. I was 22 years old, yeah.
Was there a specific weight class you were in?
So when I first started, I was 112 pounds.
Okay.
Then I fought all the way up to 152.
Yeah.
I met my wife while I was still competing as a boxer. So, it's always funny because, we're together still. We have two kids, Giovanni and Camila. And it's interesting because she met me as a competitive Golden Gloves boxer.
Right.
19 years old, walking around 146 pounds. And now she knows me as, a prosecutor, an ADA who's not 146 pounds walking around.
Was she one of the ring boxing girls there?
Yeah.
Scott used to be a wrestler in college. So
similar things about wrestling and boxing.
Yeah, the two of you can duke it out.
Yeah.
We can see what happens with
I'm not a striker. My hands are too delicate.
Yeah.
It's one of those sports, much like wrestling, that it kind of shapes kind of your outlook on life. And it teaches you a lot of things. And it's helped me along the way through this process, not only through law school, but also my decision, to run.
Sure.
And how it's impacted me. And so, I went to the University of Texas School of Law. I got out in 2014, applied actually a few different DA's offices because I wanted to be a prosecutor. And the first one that called me back and gave me an interview was Denton County.
Okay.
So I was up in Denton County for a year.
Yeah.
Because I guess there were no openings back then here in Bexar County.
My cousin, Monica Corralla, was up in Denton.
Her and I were there together at the same time.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a small world.
Fantastic.
And then she ended up going into defense practice with a man named Tim Powers up there.
He had a firm.
Yeah.
Still has a firm up there.
Yeah. And then so she stayed up there when I moved back down to San Antonio because my wife is from here. And so we were like, well, we want to start a family, and, San Antonio is probably the place to be. And, eventually Monica came down. So it's an interesting kind of, how all that works out.
Right.
But which DA here in Bexar County hired you?
Nico LaHood did.
You weren't under suit. I could have sworn you were there.
No. I was under Nico.
Okay.
Yeah.
So were you in the office when Scott was in the office?
I was, yeah.
Did you ever have a chance to work with Scott? Or
did we ever try a case together, Scott? No, I don't think we did, but I did go up to him and ask him questions because he was one of the more senior prosecutors out there. And he's always, he's been, with a lot of knowledge and a lot of trial experience.
And I wasn't snobby like some of the other veterans. I was always willing to talk to anybody about anything.
Yeah.
That's very true. He, no matter as a misdemeanor or third chair, I'm sure your guests know the distinction there, but he was always willing to help. And I've always appreciated that, Scott. Like you're saying, he was never intimidating to go up to, and he was always very passionate about everything, every case he had. So, yeah.
So when you were in Denton over at the DA's office there, how long were you in that position?
I was there for a year.
And I'm imagining during the time that you were there, you were a misdemeanor prosecutor doing specific types of cases?
It was misdemeanors. It was mostly DWIs, few assault cases, and an evading. But we tried, I think I tried about 20 cases up there
in the course of a year. Wow.
We were going all the time.
Yeah.
It was a smaller office than the Bexar County DA's office. Obviously, there were about 50 prosecutors. Our office has about 250, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it's a much different, type of.
So Denton was county attorney and district attorney together. They handled both.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they were together. Ours.
And so at some point you said, because your wife's from Bexar County, you all decided, hey, we're going to go ahead and relocate to Bexar County.
Yeah, so it's one of those things. Every Valley kid always wants to come to San Antonio because you see kind of a similarity to the culture.
Sure.
So ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to be an attorney because my grandma, she used to watch Matlock and Perry Mason.
Yeah.
And so I used to always watch those things as a little kid because she was the one that would take care of me after school. And, I was the first one in my family to go to college. So,
Sure.
It's kind of one of those things of, when you're growing up, you're like, oh, is this even possible for me? And, all those things. And, eventually kind of going through undergrad and, I met my wife and she was always very encouraging. And so I decided to take that path and eventually I became an attorney and got to UT. And
so one of the things that I have to ask you that's going to affect the way that I treat you the rest of this podcast is you went to A&M Corpus Christi and then you went to UT for law school. So do you root more for the Aggies or for the Longhorns?
Longhorns.
Okay.
That's the right answer.
You're going to get a friendly podcast here.
And it's
There's a reason why our scroll is orange along the
oh yeah, I see it right there.
Yeah, I've got a son there on campus right now.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
No.
So then you relocate over here to the Bexar County DA's office, and what are you doing when you get to the DA's office?
Oh, I get thrown into County Court 9. It was the misdemeanor trial court division.
Okay.
So mostly back then, because you couldn't get deferreds on DWIs back then, we were trying DWIs pretty much all the time.
Who was the judge then?
Walton Shelton.
Oh,
Walton
yeah.
Sheldon.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then I got moved to County Court 14 under Judge Susan Skinner.
So when you first arrived at the Bexar County DA's office, I mean, you've indicated, look, the Bexar County DA's office is a much larger office. What other differences, were there differences that you noticed between Denton County and Bexar County?
Yeah, so I would say the dockets were much different in Denton County versus Bexar County.
How so?
So in Denton County, you know how in Bexar County, obviously you're familiar with Bexar County, our dockets, especially back then, we had just a lot of cases, and there was an expectation that you could call a jury almost every day of the week, as opposed to Denton County where we had a real understanding of which cases were going to be called to trial weeks out in advance because you couldn't get a jury as often, as opposed to.
So did they call it jurors like once a week or just once a month? Twice a month?
It was once a week, but up there it was the standard practice to have actual jury trial call settings, right? So it would be 2 weeks prior where you would confer and say, okay, this is your last attempt to try to get a plea negotiated. And after that, the court's not accepting any other pleas. So everything worked out on that day. And if that one case didn't, well, you knew it was going to be tried 2 weeks from now. So it was a kind of a different type of, So for us as the state, as the prosecutors, we had, much more time to kind of prepare and get ready for those cases that were coming up.
Yeah. Whereas Bexar County, you kind of just have to be ready to go.
You got to be ready because there might be 20 cases on the docket and number 19 is going to be the lucky one that gets called, right? So that's a little
and your advocates making sure that the officer who did the stop is actually working this week.
Right. They're not on vacation or in service and all that. So,
well, I would imagine that handling cases, under both systems in those different types of way, make you pretty versatile in terms of being able to get a case prepared and get ready for trial.
Yeah, I think it was a good experience. I think every experience that I've had, and not only here in Denton County, I was also an intern in Williamson County. I actually tried my first case in Williamson County.
Okay.
As a prosecutor, I got sworn in, and then that afternoon, good friend of mine who was my mentor as a prosecutor, his name is Joffrey Purrier, and he mentored me in Travis County, and then he went to work in Williamson County. And so UT had this deal where while you were waiting for bar results, you could work at a public service job, and the university would be paying you while you're waiting for those bar results.
Oh, nice.
And so that worked out. Yeah, it was actually ended up getting paid a little more than I got paid when I started working at Denton County. Which was just, the whole day I took a pay cut when I got my.
It's like NIL for the athletes today. You take a pay cut to go pro.
Yeah, and so I get news that I passed the bar. They swear me in. That same day, try our first case. I forgot the guy's name. Pedro Elizondo. And it was a DWI. He had already been to prison once before for DWI.
So did you by felony?
It was. And he crashed out on 35 and beer cans went all over the highway. And, he was, of course, stumbling out. Obviously, that's why they, let me try that case with Joffrey. And he ended up getting back guilty and pretty quick. And so kind of that experience.
The beer cans means that he, drank a long time.
Yeah.
It wasn't a fresh beer can.
Well, it means he's constantly drinking.
Yeah. But, it's, I've been at a few different offices, so it's given me kind of a perspective and also across two different administrations to take a look at how things are different across different counties.
Sure. How different administrations handle different things, different structures, the way things are set up.
Yeah. And then also, I think especially, at least it seems, more recently, like there's more, which is good. The media follows cases much more, and then there's more in the courts. And I think that's, helpful so that the general public understands kind of what's going on at the courthouse.
Well, you bring up a good point, though, because I think the DA, we've discussed this before, is a thankless job in a big city. Okay. And so Nico was good about handling the administration. This administration currently has kind of got into a battle with some of the media people. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do to foster, to make it so you guys aren't getting, because I think to some extent, the DA's office has gotten unfairly treated by the media.
Yeah. So I'll go into kind of when there was all these rumors that Ron Hill was going to be the one that was going to run, and there was all that going out there, and then eventually it was like he's not going to do it. And I had some close friends of mine that were like, "You got to do it. You got to do it because I think you'd be great at it." And it's something that I had talked about for quite some time. On the fourth floor, there's all those pictures of the DAs, and I look them up, and I'm like, what were the things that they were going through at the time, right? And it's interesting, right? And because you can read about all those articles, and they have some even from the 1917s about cattle rustling problem we had in Bexar County, and people were complaining about it, and they're blaming the DA. He's not doing enough, and so what he ends up doing is he tries the case himself, right? Yeah. And so I say that, right, to all these people are telling me, and of course I'm thinking, well, I gotta wait because maybe I'm not old enough, right? I'm not old.
That's
enough.
The question you're going to get.
I'm going to get that question. I was expecting you guys to ask me.
Well, we were about to.
Yeah, I bet. I saw the notes. But a lot of people were telling me, and when I was really thinking it over about, okay, what's the next step in my life, and I thought about my grandfather. Mm-hmm. And he used to tell us this story. My cousin and I, he was 16 years old when he crossed the river from Mexico into the United States. And he used to tell us, he's like, I came over with only 2 pants, 2 shirts, and 2 watermelons. Right. And then he goes up to Colorado, does some farming work, and then gets my grandmother eventually. And because of him, that's the reason why I'm sitting here with y'all. Right.
Yeah, sure.
And so I thought about it, and I was like, there's so many people that are encouraging me to do this. Mm-hmm. And I know I could be good at this. I'm confident in myself. But if I don't do this now, is that me looking at that river and saying, maybe next year, maybe sometime in the future, maybe when I feel ready, and this is kind of the step. And I have much better options than he ever had, right? And so to answer your question, right, about the media, I think a lot of it has to do with us as prosecutors. We need to know that the case that's in front of us, right, we need to make sure that we're doing the right thing on that case. Can we prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? And what is the just outcome? Outside of that, they're all just opinions. And it's okay for people to disagree with what the outcome was of a case. That's perfectly within everybody's right. That's perfectly acceptable with the media's right. The duty that we have is to make sure that justice happens on each and every case, to inform our victims about what's happening, making sure our witnesses know when to show up to court. But we should never be in a position to, well, I don't know if I should dismiss this case because what's the media going to say or what they're going to say out there, right? And I think it's perfect, if it is me, right? I'm perfectly fine to sit down and have conversations with people about certain decisions. But at the end of the day, I hope that the people understand that I think everyone at the DA's office would function better if we just know that we have, as long as we're doing the right thing on each and every case, what we believe in our hearts of hearts is the right thing, then it's okay. It's okay.
Well, and it can be difficult because, especially nowadays with social media, you see a lot of people weighing in on cases that are pending and giving their opinions. And I know one of the things that's frustrating, because, I've had cases I've been involved in that get posted about on social media, and, maybe they're criticizing, the prosecutors or whatever it is. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, these people don't know that, maybe one of the investigators didn't do a very good job, or, maybe one of the witnesses was reluctant, or maybe that lab technician lost something, or whatever it is, but everything's falling squarely on the prosecutor, on the DA's office. Hey, they're not, doing their work. I think a lot of criticism comes from just a misunderstanding of how cases work, how the criminal justice system operates, and and what happens once you get in front of that jury and you're forced to prove things beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right. I think one of those things that's important for the public to understand, and I think that maybe we as prosecutors or as an office need to do better about explaining, is that just because an arrest is made or a case is filed doesn't mean that game over. All right, we got them. There's more that goes into that process. That not only is it making sure that each and every witness is credible, but can we prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt? Is there enough? What is the actual just result? But, as far as, you bring up a good point, you get outside opinions about cases that are pending or bits and pieces. I think that what's important is that the prosecutors that are in the office need to understand that there's an administration, there's a level of higher ups that respect the decisions that are being made by the people below. And I think we a lot of times we hear about this backlog issue that's in the news, right?
Yeah, we hear it.
It's kind of a big thing, right?
Yeah.
But I think so much of that is we need to look at kind of what is the root cause of that, right? The internal health of the office. And in my opinion, a lot of that has to do with the office morale. It's got to do with training of the prosecutors, especially our newer ones, and mentoring.
But to your point also, it's the prosecutors need to know that you trust their judgment.
Right. Because the prosecutors at the, especially at the line level, are the ones that know the facts the best out of anyone else, in the office.
If you're an intake prosecutor, you got 300 files in your office, and you feel like any kind of close call, you need to run up the chain before you make a decision, you ain't going to get caught up on that backlog.
Correct. Right. That creates that backlog. And you obviously know it pretty well. Scott is, back in the day, say it that way, is, I had to go to Denton County because there weren't openings, they didn't have a spot for me.
Yeah, you're right.
And nowadays it's a little different. And so we need to kind of understand, well, what is the reason behind that and how do we fix that? And I truly believe once you start fixing that, kind of the dominoes start to fall, and we can start to address these backlog issues, and making sure that, most importantly, we need to make sure that, the victims and witnesses are informed about what's going on at the courthouse and the case is pending. I also think that it would be important for us to add, additional advocates at the office.
And if you could just explain, for the audience, what's an advocate?
So a victim's advocate is a person at the office or work in a trial team or an intake. And their job is to make sure that they go and contact the witnesses and victims and inform them about settings, let them know about possible resolutions, and keep them engaged throughout the process. We have a lot of advocates in the office. We have great advocates in the office, but we could probably use a few more because of how many cases we have. One of the things that I think is not stated enough, right, is so we're in 2025. And the most recent district court that got added was which one, the 437th?
Yeah. Yes,
and so
we're way overdue.
Right. When did that get added?
Oh, I can't remember. It was Loy Valenzuela got appointed to it. I know that.
So that's been about 15 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And so what's the population of San Antonio done in 15 years? Yeah. Well, it's grown a lot. And I guess it's a great place to live. I'm raising 2 kids here.
Yeah, I had heard we were supposed to be advocating for 2 new district courts in Bexar County, like 2 legislative sessions ago. And then all of a sudden, nothing's happening with it. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And I think once we start kind of addressing some of those issues, and I go back to what I talked about earlier, was when I was kind of thinking about running and people were telling me you should do that. And I go back to the wall of all the DAs and you look at kind of what their issues were. I think, if it is me, and my picture's on that wall and someone looks in the future, they'd say his issue at the time was a growing population with limited resources, and how do we make sure that the system continues to work, effectively and efficiently? I think that's the issue of our time, of my time, and it's a matter of like what do we do? And I think it's there's a lot of different things that we can do immediately, but there are some things that are going to take time. And I don't, I hope that no one expects, January 2nd of 2027, DA's office, is fixed and the backlog's done and everything's great.
No, voters are known for being very patient and not being unreasonable in their expectations.
But
It's the interesting thing about, so when we're talking about community expectations, a lot of the people on social media are always saying, give everybody the max. And they're disqualified from sitting on the jury.
Yeah.
Because they're sitting there in jury selection and saying, well, I would give everybody the max. And then so they can't be on the jury.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem, the disconnect between the trolls who are always saying all this stuff about let them go, Joe, or
Joe.
like that, which is ridiculous.
Right.
And they don't ever show up for jury duty. They just lob hand grenades in from afar. But do you have a specific vision of anything you would remodel or realign in terms of if you were the elected?
Oh man. So I think right off the bat, what we have to do is we have to bring back a training course that every new prosecutor has to go through. And I think we need to communicate with the misdemeanor court judges that, hey, certain days or certain weeks, we need to make sure that we get our prosecutors effectively trained. I think we need to go back to at least some form of maybe sister courts or maybe mini chiefs.
Like the sister court idea.
This way that there's some sort of.
So what is a sister court?
So right now, what's happening at the DA's office is they have a chief of misdemeanor and a deputy chief of misdemeanor. And so all the DAs in the 12
I think.
12 county courts, they need to like run stuff by those two chiefs.
So it's just two people that they have to run things by.
Right.
Okay.
So with the sister court system, which we've used in a couple different administrations, each county court is attached to a felony court, and they just need to talk to their higher ups in the sister felony court.
Okay.
Much more available.
So they're more, I guess, supervisors, points of contact, things can be mentoring, more efficient.
So the first chair in each district court would maybe they're going to take responsibility for their misdemeanor prosecutors, or maybe they're going to say, you third chair, go check and see how they're doing.
And just so people know that the first chair is kind of the lead prosecutor in that court, and then the second chair is the next in line, and then the third chair.
Right.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those issues when they start getting addressed, and so we get so many new prosecutors coming in, they're not effectively trained. And then we wonder why they're leaving 6 months to a year later, right? And it's because no one wants to come into a job where you got to go into court and you're going to be facing off of a very experienced defense attorney who's just going to
Scott Simpson.
Yeah, he's going to walk in.
And I'm mean to them all the time.
Just bullying them.
Back in my day, we didn't do it like this.
But then after a while, you're like, well, I mean, every day I'm coming in here and I'm getting beat up. I could go and the pay is not the greatest. I mean, again, don't get me wrong. I think the pay is fine. I'm doing fine, but eventually people start looking for other things. Whereas we probably are losing some very good prosecutors who could have become career prosecutors at the office because they just weren't effectively trained at the beginning. Didn't have that mentorship like we had back when we were coming up. And you could go and ask someone like Scott, like, hey, I got this issue. Can you help me out? Because you've probably done this, a few more years than me.
Well, you don't want to feel like you're kind of left all alone.
Right.
Like, you don't want to feel like you're on an island and you're kind of drowning and there's nobody there. You want to feel like, hey, I've got somebody.
Now, I do think in mentorship, though, when somebody would come to me with a question about a case, I would always want to know, what do they want to do with the case? I don't want to just tell them what my opinion is without hearing what their opinion is.
Right.
And so I think that's the proper way to mentor is like, so what are you looking to do with the case? And that I've had younger prosecutors who felt like they could prove a DWI, and I knew damn well they weren't going to be able to get a guilty on that. But if I told them just to dismiss it, they wouldn't have learned from it. And they tried it and got a not guilty. You may disagree with that idea.
No.
But you're supposed to make your mistakes in misdemeanor. So by the time you get promoted into felony, you're not making mistakes anymore. Not
where the stakes are higher.
Where the stakes are higher, right?
Yeah,
and that's the thing is that eventually, if you don't adequately and effectively train the younger prosecutors, then they get promoted into felony, they get promoted to that second, first chair. And we're all wondering, well, why are some things not getting prosecuted effectively or efficiently? Well, it's because it started at the beginning. I think another thing that needs to maybe be improved upon is that, like we were talking about right now, is that everyone needs to feel like our decisions will be backed and that we don't need to run everything up by the chain. If a case needs to be rejected or dismissed because we can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, then guess what? That's okay. Right. That's the job of the district attorney's office. We shouldn't be worrying about numbers and things like that.
As long as you feel like you can go explain why you did it, you should feel good about it.
Because the danger, of course, right, is let's say you have 5 cases in front of you, and last week you had to dismiss a few cases because you couldn't prove them beyond a reasonable doubt. And you're looking at these 5 in front of you and you say, you know what, I can't prove these beyond a reasonable doubt. The just thing is to dismiss them, to reject them. The danger of focusing something on numbers is, well, I dismissed, a few last week, so I got to wait till we make the decision on these and, things like that. And that's the danger, right? And I think those.
But I did used to do that when I was a misdemeanor prosecutor. Like, I've already dismissed 2 many cases this month. Let's reset it. That's my limit for this month. Because you don't want to look like an idiot, though. Right. It's hard.
But again, I think,
Scott, what do you always say? What is the prosecutor's obligation?
To do justice.
To see that justice is done.
Right. But they could get justice next month.
That's good. That's good.
But again, it goes to that issue of like, what we're talking about, the issues of our time, right, is we have an expanding population, limited resources. Those cases, they keep coming. And that's kind of the intake monster that we have, is that cases will always keep coming. And so we have to focus and make the most efficient and effective decision that we can today.
Sure.
One of the things I used to tell my younger prosecutors is, so when they would complain about the DA kowtowing towards public perception, right? And they say, well, we shouldn't care what the public thinks. I'm like, yeah, but if our boss doesn't get reelected, then somebody else comes in that's not as willing to work with us as they are, then that didn't help the situation, did it? So we can't pretend that public perception isn't one of the most important things to an elected DA.
Right, but I think what we were talking about is there's public perception, and then there's troll perception, right? I guess that's the important distinction, right?
You're right.
And so, can the public, can we as an office, if it is me and as an elected official, be able to convey to the public that, look, you're not going to agree with every decision that we make at the office. That's just the reality.
It's a tough position.
Right.
You're never going to make everybody happy.
Right. And we as a office, myself, I have to be okay with that. And I am, because as long as I can, go to sleep every night and think, I tried to do the best that I can with each and every case, then it's okay. I think that's kind of the important thing that I want to make sure that we convey, because if we're trying to make sure that we please the trolls, well, you're never going to please the trolls,
You're right. You're 100% right.
And that's the interesting thing about it. I think that, like I said, our community is a great community. I'm here and I plan to stay here. My 2 kids, go to school here and do great things. And I hope to make the office the best that it can be. Not only for them, but for everyone.
And you're challenging all the other candidates to a boxing match.
Yeah. I think I told someone today, I said, man, I wish this was a real foot race, because then I think I could beat every single one of them. Unless, Shannon's a little faster than me, but I'm not sure, or Melly or someone.
We're coming up on the end. So what did you want out there? What do you want the public to know about you that hasn't been said so far today?
I hope that the public knows that what we need at the office is someone that's been a line prosecutor, and that's been a line prosecutor for over a decade, and has been one recently, that understands the challenges of the office, the issues that each and every prosecutor goes through, understands the way the court system works, has an idea of where the office should be, not only today, but for the future, has the ability to not only accept criticism and appreciate it, because that's the point of a functioning democracy, right? But also be able to work with not only the people that work in the district attorney's office, but also other outside agencies, law enforcement, the county commissioners, to make sure that this office can be the most effective office that it can be. Like I said, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I understand that. I hope to surround myself with chiefs that can tell me when I'm wrong. because that's also the point of this, is that this is a collective effort. It requires the entire community to make sure that, because we all want the same thing.
Right.
You're only going to be as good as the people that you surround yourself with.
Right. And we are only, we all want the same thing, all of us in this room. And that's to make sure that we have a safe Bexar County, an effective district attorney, and one that the public can look at and say, they're doing the best that they can.
Mm-hmm.
They're not perfect, but they're doing the best that they can because they're looking and pursuing justice.
And if they ever have a cure for male pattern baldness, I wouldn't mind that either, but may not be in my lifetime.
All right. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you guys for having
I appreciate
me.
you coming on.
Yeah, no,
Thank
thanks,
you so
guys.
much.
I appreciate it so much.
It was nice meeting you, and good luck on your candidacy. Do you have a website? Do you have any kind of social media that you want to promote? Do you want to?
So I have a TikTok. I have my.
So let's go through it. What is your TikTok so that the people can find you?
I think it's Oscar Salinas for DA.
Okay, awesome.
My wife is my campaign manager. She handles all that stuff. I think I have an Instagram, Oscar Salinas for DA, for Bexar County DA, and I have a website, Oscar Salinas for DA.
And if people want to donate, they can just go to the website.
They go to the website, and there's a
Salinas.
Salinas.
No period just between just Oscar Salinas. Okay.
For
Say
DA.
it one more time.
Oscar Salinas for DA.
4 written out, not the number 4.
For D written out. Yeah.
Okay.
And then DA.
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect.
Fantastic. People go look him up. You've heard his take on some issues. Go do your research, find out more about him, and visit his website. And we thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Yeah. And if anyone else wants to reach out and email me about a question, I'm more than happy to answer those questions too.
Is there an email address?
Oscar Salinas for DA
There
at
you
gmail.com.
There's a recurring theme here.
Yeah. So it works.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you for coming
Thank you,
on,
guys. I
Oscar.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to So You Got Arrested. If you found this podcast helpful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. For more legal insights and real talk from the front lines of the Texas justice system, follow us and subscribe. And remember, Brick Criminal Defense has your back. For more information, visit us at brckdefense.com.